exists using AppStream. So as we reached out to Amazon Web Services and started asking questions, they connected us with Darin Cook from SynchroNet. And now we are on a journey that I'm just unbelievably excited for. We are starting a pilot solution that we're going to be offering to all of our schools here. We'll let people in a little bit at a time as we get going, but we're building out a custom solution for schools. So not just leveraging what exists already in AppStream, but a custom solution that we'll be able to deploy that will include some things that are definitely missing so far in what you can do with AppStream alone. So I'm grateful for those of you guys that have jumped on and taken the time to come see what we've got to offer here today. I'm going to hand over the floor here to Darin Cook, who's the CEO of SynchroNet, and he will be passing it on to Joe Wakeman, who is an educational consultant from him and currently employed at one of the schools in Nevada, Iowa. Both of these gentlemen are brilliant, and really excited to see what they have to show us here.
Thanks, Anna. This is Darin Cook. Thanks everybody for taking some time and joining us today. So here's what we're trying to solve. No one knows what the new norm really is going to look like, you know, as we begin the fall semester. So we've been working SynchroNet alongside with ByteSpeed and our friends at Amazon Web Services have been working to enable districts to have a remote computer lab option available. It's my opinion and kind of thought that we'll have some need, right, in the K through 12 space for a hybrid environment that would enable remote access to applications inside of the Autodesk, you know, suite, you know, like Revit or Inventor and AutoCAD, as well as Adobe and some of the project lead the way pathways where the students will need remote access, or districts will need at least the ability to enable remote access. So in partnership with ByteSpeed, SynchroNet is leveraging our experience to help enable ByteSpeed provide a service leveraging Amazon's AppStream to be able to do just that. So at the end of the day, all of that means the students will be able to access the applications that we've talked about, AutoCAD, Revit, Inventor, and others. So we'll have an approved list of applications, Adobe, whatnot, via a browser. And so what this does is it enables them to use Chromebooks or their own PCs or Macs or what have you in order to complete their coursework. So we, as Anna indicated, we're putting together a pilot program. So this is a new offering that we're putting together. The technology behind it, Amazon AppStream, is not new. It's actually been available for a number of years. What's different about the ByteSpeed offering is that we're packaging it together to make it very easy for the districts to consume. So we're providing a fully managed environment, so managing the images and building out the environments, so that way that effort does not have to be placed on the districts themselves. So what we wanted to do today is a couple things, one of which is everyone who's on the call today has been invited to apply for the initial pilot. And we wanted to walk you guys through how we're setting up the pilot and the product, and wanted to give you a demo of how some of the schools are using these things today. So on the screen is the landing page that each of you would have access to. And this landing page has a couple of questions for you. There's a calculator. We'll go through the calculator after the demo because it'll probably make a little bit more sense. But if you can, if you're interested in applying for the pilot, if you can go to this landing page, answer some of these questions, and then we can get you registered. So with that, I wanted to, Anna, was there anything else that you wanted to cover about the landing page?
No, I think you're right. Once we go through the demo, it'll make a whole lot more sense. I just I get so nervous on these things knowing I'm being recorded, so I apologize. But AppStream's a great solution. It's been out there for a while. What I'm excited about is that we're taking something that already exists and that works well, and just fine tuning it to fit better for schools by taking away some of the things that have made it difficult for schools to make that adoption. Joe has been a great partner and a great friend and has a lot of experience, and is already a school that's adopted AppStream and is using it currently. So he's got a lot of experience, and we're leaning on him to help us fill some of those holes. And Darin's team has extensive experience with AppStream and design on the back end. So once Joe goes through and does the demo of what the solution actually looks like, I'll go back in and we can kind of relook at that form and then answer any questions too. So please don't hesitate to ask questions once we get through this. I'm sure that there will be some. So thank you for that, Darin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joe, with that, did you want to start walking through the demo, and then we'll start fielding questions as they come in?
Absolutely. So, hey everyone, my name is Joe Wakeman. I'm the Technology Director for the Nevada Community School District in Nevada, Iowa. And I am going to walk you through a little bit of a demo today on what AppStream looks like from a end user perspective. So I will share my screen. All right, so here we're just at a Google landing page. So I am doing this within the Chrome web browser. Now the experience is going to be the exact same whether you're doing it on a Mac, on a PC, on a Chromebook, on an iPad, whatever your end platform is. The experience is going to be very similar. I'm on my Google homepage. I'm already signed in as my test account with my school provided Gmail account. So if I go to my app launcher and I click AWS AppStream, because we're leveraging Google as a single sign-on provider, the credentials are able to pass through to AppStream, so that way it's not another password you need to remember. It just uses the existing accounts that you've already got on your Google environment. So here's a catalog of applications that we offer to our students. So what I'm going to launch today is Autodesk Inventor 2020. And that's a pretty hefty app, so you'll see some of the capabilities that running a pretty in-depth app, how that works in a browser. So right here, it's preparing a session. So one of the cost optimization things that AppStream does is called on-demand instances. To lower my ongoing cost, what that does is then I have a trade-off of I've got about 1.5 minutes startup time. So the first time that you launch an app in AppStream each day, your students would have about 1.5 minutes startup time. So something we like to do is right at the beginning of class, as they're doing attendance, have the kids jump on and get their AppStream loaded up. So that way it's after that 1.5 minute wait, everything's available to the students. And of course, there's nothing slower than watching paint dry. So the 1.5 minutes feels like forever, but
it's watching water boil, right?
Yep. It's in reality, it's not all that bad, especially if you kind of make that as some of your classroom management stuff that you just fire it up, so that way it's ready to go when you're ready.
Joe, we could have taken roll to make it feel like a real, life scenario.
Yeah, there you go.
We could have taken roll, and then it wouldn't have seemed that long at all.
Absolutely. Okay, so here Autodesk Inventor is launching. Now, one of the things with the browser experience, I've got a few different things. So clipboard works natively. So if I copy and paste something in a Gmail tab, I can paste that into the AppStream environment. I also have access to my Google Drive within the AppStream environment. So that way I can save things right to my Google Drive. I can access files. I can leverage drop folders. So if a teacher has, like they want completed assignments to put in their drop folder, the teacher would just use the Google Drive sharing mechanism that they already know to create a shared folder, and that would be available to the students as well. So here, Autodesk Inventor is launched. I can go ahead and, I'm going to allow my clipboard. I can go ahead and create a new project. And a caveat is I know very little about Inventor, so you're going to see my lovely Inventor skills here in action. I'm going to start a 2D sketch. I'll pick my plane, draw a box. Okay, I will extrude my box. And I will add a hole in my box.
I don't
So
know.
there we go. That's
Looks like you're pretty good at that.
that's about the extent of what I can do. So just kind of give you a quick, I mean, I didn't really have any discernible lag. As I'm working as if I was working on a desktop. I mean, the students would realistically have no idea that they're doing this in a browser on a computer remotely somewhere. But I'm able to accomplish all my tasks that I normally would in a pretty expensive lab, but now I'm doing it in a browser on an inexpensive device. So that's realistically how this works. Very simple. As far as the kids are concerned, the authentications pass through. Storage, they use the Google storage that they already know and use. So it's pretty seamless to the kids, and which is definitely what we want, to be a pretty seamless process for them as well as the teachers, not to have this thing that they would need to manage. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of my demo. Darin and Anna, anything we'd like to go through while we're still connected here with the demo up, or?
Well, I think some of the folks are having questions about
Yeah.
licensing, and so I wanted to cover that real quick. So we we are going to have a licensing server, a network licensing server in AWS for you to leverage your licenses. So you can leverage your own licenses, and they will be network. It's going to be inside of AWS. So think about the AWS network. We'll have think about it as a VM. AWS calls them instances. So we'll have an instance that's running your license in AWS. And so it would handle it just like it is on your local network. Is that a fair representation, Joe?
Yep, absolutely. So it's spin up that virtual machine in the AWS. It's got your licenses just as an in-house license server would have. And then your Autodesk stuff can phone home. Things like the Google Suite, or not Google Suite, the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. That's all internet-based licensing, so no license server needed there. So what I would do in that instance is launch Photoshop, sign in with the Adobe CC cloud account that's got a license tied to it, and then that's licensed as well.
Can we also,
there's another
real quick, sorry, Darin, can we also address real quick the type of machines that you can deliver content to? And I know you've got some experience there, Joe, in your different environments.
Sure. So the kind of the base spec of the machine, Darin can speak more to what it'd be in the solution, but that's something that you can choose the hardware size, and the bigger hardware you choose, the more the cost goes up. So we've really tried to find a comfortable medium in between optimization as far as cost goes, but still having a powerful enough machine to do the tasks that are at hand. Darin, do you want to speak a little bit about the instance that we'll go with for this solution?
Yeah, so it's the instance we have as far as the resources that we're planning is the design X large. So it's basically 4 CPUs. Let's just call it 16 gig of RAM and 2 gig of GPU for the high-end applications. And then there are some that will drop down depending upon the applications. So that would be the high-end instance. And then on the low end, depending upon the apps that we're running, it could be a 2x8, so 2 CPUs with 8 gigs of RAM. So we'll have different instances depending upon the images and applications that we're supporting.
So just really quick, for those of you that are new to this type of a streaming service, what this solution allows you to do is run basically most high-end applications on anything from a Chromebook to an iPad to any remote device, because the processing is being done at Amazon's on Amazon's servers. So right now, anyone can log in and go create an account and set things up and build out this environment in Amazon for themselves. They've made it a long ways, and it actually is a solution that any of you can take advantage of if you chose to. What we are doing with our pilot is trying to take away some of the things that we feel like are a little bit more cumbersome for schools. If you went and built out the environment, you would obviously need to manage the environment, and there's a lot of question marks on how you're going to build out the different devices, hour usage. It's billed on a monthly basis on what you use. What we're looking to do is sell bundles of hours and manage the environment for you so that you can have a little bit of more of an insight into what is coming down the road instead of the surprises at the end. So we'll build out the environment, we'll build out the machines. Darin was talking about what it will look like on the background, but for all intents and purposes, you guys won't have to worry about that. We will sell packages of hours and build out the environments that you need, and it'll come basically a la carte with everything that you need available for you. This is a pilot. It is something new for us where we're going to be managing this environment. So our trade-off with you all is that we're not going to charge anybody to get spun up in the environment. You will buy packages of hours at 2,500 hours for $5,000. So some of these things may change as we get further into this and kind of understand what things look like. But our initial plan is to waive the admin fee or the setup fee for anybody that starts with us. And then we're going to lean on you guys for feedback on how things are going, what the environment looks like. We're planning to create a dashboard for you all to be able to see, and we'll be asking for feedback on what you're seeing and how it looks. So really initially what we're doing is looking for some people to start partnering and helping us design the solution. And we feel like we've got the right resources and experience in the background, but having more adopters up front with us will help us make sure that the solution looks just like we want it to. So I'll just share that, I'll share again that pilot page here. Initially, we're not going to open it up to every application, and we're probably going to start with about 10 users at a time. So just we may kind of stretch out the adoption just because we're not sure how long it will take us to get things spun up and moving forward. But I'll share this link. It's just bytespeed.com/appstream. You can click here for an hours calculator, and it'll help give you kind of an idea of how many hours that you might need. Do you guys want to talk about the calculator? This is just a sample filled in here, but obviously you can go in and edit the numbers. I don't know if it's Joe or Darin, which one of you guys is the most appropriate to kind of talk about how we put this calculator together.
Yeah, sure. I can talk to that. So there's the calculator. What we're trying to do here is simplify the pricing, and the mechanisms for it. So do you want to show the calculator and I'll just walk through it, or I can change my screen either way, or I can show my screen, I guess.
I apologize. I thought I had it on there. Can you see it
Oh,
now?
okay, we can, yeah. So as Anna mentioned, the what we're trying to do is make the way that you buy this easier for you than just buying AppStream. So let me talk through that for just a moment. You could go to AWS today and buy AppStream, and that's absolutely an option for you, right? The challenge that districts have presented to us is the way that they buy it, it's a bit undetermined, right, as far as how much the district will need to spend. And so what we've done is we've created packages, and it's 2,500 hours. And what we've done is tried to normalize the instances. So there'll be some instances that are at the higher resources and some at the lower, but we're going to manage that for you on the backside. So that way we're only going to, the only thing you'll have to do is let us know what applications are really what images you want out of the approved list. So let's say that you have classes, supporting your project Lead the Way, Intro to Engineering, right? And they'll have I think Inventor and Revit's part of that pathway. You'll be able to have access to that image, and so the kids would log on to that, and during that time they'll have access to the right resources. And then if they're in a different section of that and they're using different applications, then that image would then be available to them, okay? So it's basically, we're gonna split up the applications to ensure that you're using the right resources on the backside. That's one of the ways that we can make the pricing easier. So I know that probably sounds super confusing, but we want to make the right applications available at the right time for the course material. So to calculate basically how many packages you would need, we're providing this calculator. So it's the total number of students that you have enrolled in classes that would need access to a computer lab, right? And then, how many hours per week, right, are they using those labs? So in this environment, this example that we've got, it's 100 students, right, that have, let's just call it an hour, a day during the week, that's accessing, 25 lab computers, okay? That's going to be different for each district. And then also, how many hours, if any, do you want to allow each student to have for homework? Because remember, so this will be different because now students will be able to have access to this anytime. And so they can actually do homework on these environments where they couldn't do that obviously with a physical lab. So once you've input these, the top 4 elements, right? Total number of students that you have accessing it, how many hours of of class do you have each week, and the lab computers, what we're trying to determine there is how many students you'll have logged on at one time. So we're trying to, as closely as we can, emulate what a lab environment would be. So in this example, these 100 kids are sharing access throughout the day to 25 lab computers. And so that would be the concurrent sessions, right? How many people are logged on? And so in this example with, 5, hours per week, right? Supporting 100 students and, 25 at a time, we're going to give the students 1 hour per week in homework. So that basically adds up to how many hours per month, and then per what we're calling the annual, right, which is we're calculating over 9 months. So that's 8,100 hours that you would need to support those students. If you'll scroll down just a little bit, Anna. Perfect. So the packages come in 2,500 hours. So you would need, 4 packages to support the 8,100 hours, which is going to give you obviously 10,000 hours. So those 10,000 hours are going to be available to you throughout the year. We'll give you a dashboard, so that way you'll be able to see the consumption. And so it's $20,000 a year, right, to support a lab environment of this size.
I'll just add to that this website has the calculator on there. You can just click here for the calculator and kind of play with your own hours too, as you get going.
So the some of the questions that are coming in, one about hours. So I'm looking at probably under 500 hours, right, for the year at this point. So the hours as we're setting them up would not roll over. So if you have that small of usage, then you may look at doing something directly with AppStream, but quite honestly, you're going to spend more than the $5,000 getting the environment set up in AWS. So I believe that even if you have less than 2,500 hours, that this is still the most viable option for you, because the cost that it would take to get everything set up in AWS, as well as the management of it, to be able to have consultants come in and maybe help you get it set up, would be well over $5,000. Let's see, let me bang through some of the questions that we have coming in. All great questions, by the way. Older versions of Adobe Creative Suite, yes, you can use those. We would probably look at maybe not including the older versions in the initial pilot, but yes, you can use it. Let's see. Can we limit the users within the VDI environment? Yes, we can control the number of users that are there. One of the things that we've set up is that each package has a maximum number of 100 students per month that could log into it. So you can have more than 100 students, but we want to try to minimize the number of students that are logging in 1 month. And quite honestly, just some of the behind the scenes stuff, that's because of there's licensing implications that we have to manage. So if you have more than 100 students per month that you would need to access, and we would probably have to handle that on a one-off basis. One of the questions, are we limited to what apps are available? We're rolling out this product as with a certain list of approved applications. They're mostly around the Project Lead the Way, engineering, intro to engineering, as well as Adobe, which doesn't address all of the apps that you'll have in your labs. The current thought process that we have is that if you can enable students in a hybrid scenario to take some of these classes remotely, then that would give you more flexibility if there are space concerns with labs, if you have to go to an A/B schedule, some of those things. This will evolve over time, where we'll have more applications available. The pilot is somewhat constricted, just so that way we can address a lot of districts going into the fall. But we'll absolutely follow up, and if there are specific needs that you have, we may need to just address those on a one-off basis outside of this pilot program.
And Darin, I think you touched on it a little bit on your last answer, but I think we don't need to look at this as a solely distance learning opportunity, right? Like you said,
Yep.
Space constraints. because of scheduling, or you need the room that a lab was in, or I'm looking at replacing a lab. Do I buy another set of computers for that lab, or do I transition to, when every kid may have a device, do I transition to something like this so I don't have to replace that lab? So I think that's definitely a huge factor in this, as well as far as possibilities go. And that's one thing here is we've been doing this for 6 years. It's not, it came up with, we were moving from Macs to Chromebooks. How do we gain some of that capability we had with the Macs, but be able to do it on the Chromebook? And then since that time, it's been, well, hey, let's start throwing other stuff at it. Let's see what we can do. And now, as of 8 o'clock this morning, I finally decommissioned the last lab in the district, because I don't need it anymore, because every kid already has a device, and with AppStream, I can provide them with every opportunity they had with that lab. But not only that, I can give them opportunities for working on things at home. So the Project Lead the Way suite, traditionally they were locked into that lab. They could only work on it in that 42 minutes they were in that class. Well, now they can work on it during a study hall. They can work on it at home for homework. So my opportunities for kids have grown exponentially, and we're able to offer a lot more, specifically Project Lead the Way classes, just because I'm not constrained to that lab anymore.
Great point. Let me try to buzz through some of the other questions. There's a couple of questions that are coming in about licenses. So we plan to build out the AWS environment. There'll be a licensing server there. So you would basically handle licensing just like you do on-prem today. So the licensing server would be there. You would, and then you would leverage that just as a network license server that you do on-prem. Joe, is there anything that we should elaborate on relative to licensing, or how folks would use a licensing server in an AWS versus on-prem?
Yep, absolutely. So a lot of the use case kind of revolves around the Autodesk suite, where we've got the network license server. The Adobe CC products are even in a device model, they still require cloud connection for licensing. So that's not an issue there. I saw one of those questions with the device model. That shouldn't be an issue. I think there are going to be some individual use cases that we're going to have to go through. And again, that also comes down to what is on the final list of approved apps. And when Darin talks about approved apps, those are things that have been thoroughly tested and vetted to work in this kind of environment. So it's something that we are comfortable saying that anybody can use these, and it's going to be an acceptable substitute for a lab. There's a lot of other possibilities as far as other software that can be thrown on there, but those kind of things need a lot of testing and a lot of work to make sure that it's going to perform exactly as we want in that virtual environment. So kind of like Darin mentioned before, some of those licensing concerns for some very specific apps, we might have to take a look at those on an individual basis as we go down that road. Chris just asked, do we need to provide OS licensing as well? No, you don't, Chris. So part of this cost includes operating system licensing, as well as CALs for unique users that connect. So that's something that you do not need to provide. All we need from you is licenses for the end software that students and staff would use.
Yep. A question came in from Patrick about limiting the number of students. Joe, do you want to talk about, so what we're doing for authentication is leveraging your out of the gate in this initial pilot is the Google authentication. And so, Joe, do you want to talk about how you entitle certain users via
absolutely.
Google?
Yep, absolutely. So one thing that we do is you can you put a attribute on your Google users that you want to connect up through this solution, anybody without that attribute would not be able to connect up. So if you wanted to specifically limit it to a yearbook class or a project lead away class, you'd definitely be able to do that by only putting this attribute on those Google users. One thing we do is we provision all of our users with that attribute. We started out small, and then based on real world, what we were seeing, it wasn't being abused. We weren't seeing huge cost overruns. So we just opened it up to everybody. It was much easier than once we started rolling out to different classes. You know, we've got 5-6 classes using the solution. It was tough to keep up on those enrollment changes for all of those things. So we just opened it up to everybody. But again, that's something certainly that that you would have control over as far as visibility goes.
So some of the other questions coming in about just limiting. So if you have one student, maybe that's using it more than others, can you have certain limits, and you can have session limits that you put in place, so that way that they're not, you know, staying on for hours at a time. So we'll, you know, and we'll have some detailed user reports. So that way, if you do see something that you know, needs to be addressed from a behavioral perspective, and you can address that too.
Weren't we kind of talking to Darin about making it so that it automatically ended the session within an hour? So some of this we're figuring out too, what the needs and wants were going to be, but just so that it ended a session within an hour, so that people wouldn't be able to stay in for multiple hours and back up usage that way.
Yeah, we can have that element of control. I think that's a great point, and or where again, it's a pilot, so we probably need to work with some of the different schools on, you know, I think maybe an hour, maybe a little too small of a window, but what parameters do we want to put on it? Do we want to put a, you know, hour and a half? Those kinds of things. So some of the questions coming in are about bandwidth. So the bandwidth that you need, Joe, I don't know if you've done any specific studies on at the school and how much bandwidth you guys needed at the school, and can talk to that.
Yep, absolutely. So it was one of those solutions that we've got a plenty big pipe at school, but at home, maybe not so much. So we paid pretty close attention to what our usage is. And I see on average under 15K per stream per client. So even somebody with a terrible cellular connection, you'd be able to jump on and operate without any realistic issue. So bandwidth wise, it's extremely small.
So I think we've got through quite a bit of the questions. So the pilot, one of the questions came in about just the Google authentication. We are only enabling the G Suite authentication for this pilot. If you have a need that's outside of that, and you have you're using Microsoft Active Directory, we can just have a conversation about what that looks like. The next evolution of this will probably enable that. We just there's some dependencies on creating a VPN back to the existing Active Directory network. But if you have Azure AD, then there's some options that we can look at there. The first 10 schools that we're going to do, we're going to limit those to Google, and then we'll be expanding out. We want to be able to expand the pilot quickly, and to be able to enable, you know, a few hundred schools to have this solution prior to fall. So we'll be iterating quickly. The Autodesk services, one of the questions came in about any Autodesk product. It's really around the Autodesk applications to support Project Lead the Way pathways. So, you know, Revit, CAD, Inventor, those are the ones that are top of mind. I don't know if there are other, Joe, if you know of other Autodesk
Yep.
apps that are in that Project Lead the Way I'm missing.
Fusion 360 is another one that the curriculum uses. But
Yes.
yeah, that's really what this is designed around is those Autodesk products within the realm of Project Lead the Way.
Let's see. Licenses for Adobe. I don't know that I know the answer to this one, Joe. Maybe you do. So will both licenses types work for Adobe device and user?
Yes, they should.
There was a question about a specific plugin with Adobe. We probably just need to. We'd probably just need to look at it. I think that's got most of the questions that we've got. You know, as far as devices supported, obviously you can use, you know, thin clients. So if you wanted to set this up as a, and you wanted to have a physical lab, you could use thin clients, you know, as the device that the kids are connecting to. And so really any device that has a browser, HTML5 browser can access this. Now, one of the limitations in using the browser is the USB pass-through. So this is one of the questions that I think Shelley had. So when using a Chromebook or a Mac, you're basically limited to the browser itself, which does not have a USB pass-through. So where that would come into play is where you're doing the Project Lead the Way pathways for the robotics class and trying to upload, you know, the program to the robot itself. So for that, you would need to use a PC to do a native app for Windows that would do a USB pass-through, or there are ways around that if you needed to do a physical lab using a different type of device called a USB Anywhere. Those options are not going to be included in the initial pilot, but you know, and one of the things I wanted to cover is if there are things that you want to do that aren't part of the pilot, we can still, ByteSpeed and SynchroNet can still work with you and help you get your own environment stood up to support all of these things. We're doing that with a number of schools throughout the US. The pilot is really intended to make it's somewhat limited, very easy, and very predictable to get started. But if you have some specific needs that are outside of the initial pilot, then we can definitely talk about that.
I'll just jump in quick for a second, Darin. One of the questions I just got was, what if I'm not currently an AWS user, and what does that look like when I'm getting started?
Yeah, we would, everything would be set up for you. So you really wouldn't even see or need to worry about the AWS environment. It's just the mechanism that we're using to enable the remote lab. So one of the questions came in and said, who would we need to talk to about needs outside of the pilot? I would definitely send those to Anna and the team at ByteSpeed, and then we can set up time to talk, Stephen.
I think we're kind of running up on our time. Is there any last minute questions or anything that anybody has? I just want to reiterate the point of the pilot is for us to be able to put something streamlined and simple forward that everybody can adopt, and that'll be basically group thought. If we all provide feedback and work together, we'll end up with a solution that works very well for the majority of schools out there. We understand everybody's needs are a little bit different. We appreciate your patience as we work through. We would love to have launched with everything ironed out perfectly and 100 applications in the window and every problem solved. But I think that's really what the point of this pilot is for us to use your guys' feedback to make this solution really better than it could ever be, and to grow with us. So appreciate the time that everybody took to get on here, and look forward to hearing any questions that you guys might have. And as you go through the calculator, if you guys want formal quotes for packages of ours, we'll get those put together and sent over to you. And applications, I think we'll be adding those as they go. So if you have an application that you really want that's not on the list right now, I don't think that those will be added in immediately. We really want to vet out our current environment and make sure that it's running smoothly. If it's an immediate need that you want to do outside of the pilot, let us know. And I think that we can get something going. If you're asking in regards to if your application is accepted into the pilot right away, we will get something answered and figured out right away and sent back to you guys here by the end of the week. So thank you everyone so much for the time here. If you got part of this and not all of it, a recording of the webinar will be sent out to everybody that registered. We will also post it on our website at bytespeed.com/webinars. So if you want to review anything or can't remember how we answered a question, you can go back over and watch a recording of the webinar on our website. Again, that's bytespeed.com/webinars. A list of the applications that we're starting with right now is on that pilot application page. So if you go to bytespeed.com/AppStream, you will be able to see a list of the applications that we're getting started with right there. So thank you everybody for jumping on. Please don't hesitate. You can email me personally at anna@bytespeed.com or reach out to your territory manager if you have questions, and we'll get things put together for you as quickly as we can. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Thank you, Joe and Darin.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.